All right. As a reminder to everyone, the vision for our work group is that Prince George's County is a place where everyone has access to fresh, nutritious food and environments that promote good health, wellness, and active living. So now I would like to introduce our first presenter of the day, Bridget Warren, the Program Manager of the Office of Food Security in the Prince George's County Department of Social Services. Bridget, I'm going to pull up your slides and I will pass it over to you.
Thanks very much, Kim. So are you ready to go?
All set, all yours.
Okay, so in 2023, we began working on a food assistance survey or survey of food assistance providers. And if we can go to the next slide, this was a project that came out of an effort by the Council of Governments to gather all the information that they could from jurisdictions in their service area to build a GIS layer. One of the things that everyone discovered during the pandemic's peak was that people didn't know where to get food. All sorts of different systems were in play, and because we function as a region, someone might find a DC location closer to them or a Prince George's location. I know in talking to some of our food assistance providers that was the case. So this GIS layer hopefully will provide an overall picture of where everyone's distributing food, what the resources are there. So there was a standardized set of questions that was asked for this GIS layer, but we wanted to piggyback on that and gather some additional information for Prince George's. Next slide, please. Our office is relatively new, and we're charged with growing this food system in our county in a sustainable, healthy way. And we had worked with various food assistance providers, but wanted to survey them and gather information that could guide us going forward. And as you all know, you can think what the outcome will be, but not necessarily achieve it because you're out of sync with your providers and your constituency. Next slide, please. One of our office responsibilities is to put together a food assistance plan for the county, specifically to serve our residents in case of another pandemic, a natural disaster, all types of emergencies. So we are lucky to be working with a great planner at DHS, and he's been very interested in working together, layering the services that we'd want and learning from each other. So it's been an interesting experience, and we wanted to gather very specific questions, information on very specific questions for his planning purposes, because FEMA doesn't want you to leave details out. Next slide, please. Just as context, I wanted to share this excerpt from the most recent report from the Capital Area Food Bank. They do these annual reports, and as you can see, things have not changed significantly. There's still an enormous percentage of people who are food insecure, and the number in our county is even higher. So understanding what's driving those trends and how people are responding is essential to our office doing its job. Next slide, please. We had a very long survey, so we had to solicit information several times, but as you would expect, it's the three different layers that I mentioned, the GIS layer, emergency management, and the office information that we wanted to gather. What you see is a combination of information for the GIS layer and for emergency management. We wanted to know what's being served, but also how can people get it? One of our big problems has been that so many large sites are for drivers only, but a barrier to Accessing food is sometimes that there isn't transportation, or the transportation that's available, buses in particular, don't serve people well, because if you get a big box of food, carrying it along with your 3 kids on the bus is just not going to be a good experience. Next slide, please. Just over 51% of our providers in the county are nonprofits. Another big piece of the pie are providers in the faith-based community. And people identify differently in terms of their locations, but most people think of themselves as either a food pantry or a food distribution site. Those tend to be a little bit larger. 94% of those sites are active. We had some groups that worked during the pandemic and have subsequently closed down, or they're going to operate again in the case of an emergency. Most groups get their food from Capital Area Food Bank and local retailers, and we'll come back to that in a moment. 62% do not have eligibility requirements, which is really important to us, that people can access food without showing proof of residency or income. Next slide, please. Next slide. So because we found out both anecdotally and through the survey that a lot of people were going to stores, especially when they were looking for culturally relevant foods, and purchasing at full retail. Some people, just a couple groups, had gone to Whole Foods in particular. So we wanted to know how many groups would be interested in a bulk buying program. And about 34% of the groups they also were looking for more information. So once we have a proposed plan, we would go back to our food assistance providers and ask for additional information from them to see, what payment system would work for you. And that's something that I hope we'll be able to pursue in the near future. Next slide, please. Access to cold storage has been an ongoing issue, and IPHI, your next speaker, has done great work in this area, both for emergency management and our own office understanding of the landscape. We wanted to ask this question. We were pretty surprised that 75% of our providers said they had access. So whether that's a shared trailer with another group, whether they mean 3 regular size refrigerators or deep freeze, we don't really know. So that's another question that we'll have to expand on, because obviously for emergency management reasons, you'd want to know just how large that is. But we also know that there's been a huge need, and the Food Equity Council has worked in this area extensively. So I kind of have some questions about that number. Next slide, please. One of the ways that we'd like to increase food access, especially for things that are important to people culturally, is by asking groups, do they have the land to host a community garden, or would they like to participate in some way? And we've had a good response to that, as you can see, but I think we need more explanation. In a focus group, we found that a lot of people thought of the community of gardening as a backup activity when they were at the end of the month, their budget was particularly tight, that sort of thing. Out of that focus group, one of the other alternate sources of protein for some families was fishing. So everyone in their family had a license. So we want to understand how we can help people access food. And of course, there are physical and mental health benefits to gardening that are well proven, and we want to encourage that and support people in that. Next slide, please. The food rescue program is run by the Food Equity Council, and we want to see about how we can grow that program. And there seems to have been a little bit of hesitancy about participating in that. And it could be logistical, whether the group has capacity to have pick up a food rescue. The DC program is well developed for food rescue, and I've seen that some of the food produced in our county is leaving to go to DC locations. So we want to find out how we can increase the food assistance providers' participation in that. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry. The emergency management information that came out was important to the planners. As you can understand, if a church can, or excuse me, if a location can serve 15 people versus 1,500, that helps them locate distribution sites that would be able to take warm food to a site to be distributed immediately versus providing meals that could be prepared on site. Kitchen equipment, you might have a microwave, a stove, and a refrigerator, or people have those huge commercial ranges. So we wanted to have a better understanding of that. And then if you have a loading dock, they can bring a truck in. Do you have a pallet mover? Do you have equipment to quickly unload or staff to help you unload? And that kind of leads to staffing type, because if you have a fleet of volunteers with an unpaid coordinator, that's going to be different than some of the churches that are serving 2,000 people each time they do a food distribution site. Next slide, please. This is an excerpt from that report that I mentioned earlier by Capital Area Food Bank. And you can see how this gathering all this information will both help our county and help the region. The Council of Governments effort is driven both by the Food and Agricultural Management Committee that is trying to build a more connected and resilient food system across the region, but also the GIS planning group for the region is, of course, running the program. And this effort, I hope, will be a good investment for the region, but also the data we're gathering is important. Next slide, please. And I wanted to apologize. I got off on the food rescue program, but also on that one side, we're hoping to do something called Grow a Row, which is where home gardeners would regularly donate produce that they grow. But getting people to accept that and working out the logistics until we have a central location will be a little bit of difficulty, but we also wanted to judge how interested would groups be before we start up that program. One of the things that we're hoping to do is hire a community garden coordinator shortly, and this project would be in their portfolio once that person's hired. So if you need more information, we have an office update. We'll have a more complete data summary. We can send you the survey link and any other information you'd like. So thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Bridget. Does anyone have any questions? All right. And before I introduce our next speakers, Michelle, would you like me to share the slides on your behalf?
Yeah, that would be great. If you wouldn't mind,
Absolutely.
Kim.
All right, so now I'd like to introduce Michelle Burton and Scarlett Castro from the Institute for Public Health Innovation, and they'll be discussing Prince George's Fresh Evaluation, our food as medicine program.
Wonderful. Kim, can you let me know if you can hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay, perfect. Sometimes I have trouble with my mic. All right, well, thank you for having us this afternoon. So we're happy to share our results, and we have a report coming up that will be available at the end of this month that we'd love to share with you that contains more of the data. All right, yep, you can go to the next slide. So this slide just gives you a bit of the background that I think you all are already aware of some of the prevalence of the chronic disease in our county that sort of prompted why a program like this was needed, and also as you all know, because this informs our community health improvement plan for Prince George's County. And you can see we have very high rates of diabetes and obesity. We go to the next slide. And then just as our speaker before me, Bridget, shared, Prince George's County has a very high level of food insecurity. And so this is actually taken from the 2022 report from the Capital Area Food Bank. So because of those sort of conditions that we were very well aware of in 2020, we wanted to have a program that was informed by data. And so as part of the Prince George's Healthcare Action Coalition, as members of this group, we researched different interventions. We came upon food as medicine as a promising practice that we could implement in the county. And not only that, we wanted a program that would also address a particular subpopulation in the county. When one of our food equity council members was approached by a local clinic because their clients were both experiencing high degrees of food insecurity and were also dealing with diet-related chronic illness, and they were not able to take advantage of the double coupon voucher that was being implemented at that time at Maryland Food Bank. So we wanted to also keep in mind the special parameters of other groups that were not able to take advantage of other programs. And so all of that informed what became Prince George's Fresh. And we also were able to adapt a program from DC Greens that was already implemented in Giant. And of course, Giant is one of our partners. So using that, that's what launched this program finally in 2021. You can go to the next one. So here is just a few of the logos of the partners from the get-go. So we would meet and talk about these issues, and this just came about sort of organically. And you could see that Giant gave us the access to their technology, and they also have a very generous health and wellness program. So we were able to use their nutritionists who are both bilingual in English and Spanish. And of course, the nutritional counseling is provided at no cost. And also, this was also informed, the program design and implementation was also designed by the Prince George's Healthcare Action Coalition staff. Adventist Healthcare are also key partners, Prince George's County Food Equity Council, and IPHI. So collaboratively, we shared our resources together to get this off the ground. All right, so I'll kick it over to Scarlett, who will share with you about our goals.
Thank you, Michelle. And taking into account the background that Michelle just shared is what prompted our objective of bridging the gap of between food insecurity and chronic disease. And within this, the program's goals have always been to increase the knowledge of and buying power of produce, as well as address the root cause of poor health, support additional clinical treatment options, as well as strengthen doctor-patient relationships. In order for our participants to qualify and become a participant in the program, they had to meet 4 criteria, and that was be 18 years or older, live in the county of Prince George's, be diagnosed with one or more diet-related chronic disease such as hypertension, cholesterol, prediabetes, and diabetes. During this process, the clinic partners also screen patients by using the validated 2-question hunger vital signs tool. And this was to assess if the participants or potential participants were experiencing food insecurity. So if a patient at that moment responded as either often true or sometimes true to either one or both of the questions that we were collecting in that interest form, then they qualified to be a part of our 6-month wellness program. Our pilot study had a sample size of 87. Of those, 75% were Latino and 25% were African American. Our participants' insurance type varied. So we saw 43% of our participants had private insurance, 37% had no insurance, and 12% had public insurance. So either Medicare and Medicaid. 53% of our participants were between the ages of 40 and 59, and 71% of our participants spoke primarily Spanish. All right, back to you, Michelle.
Okay, thanks. So this is just to walk through what the patient journey is of how they get to our program. So first of all, it starts at the clinic. That's where folks are screened for having the criteria of being food insecure, as well as one of the diet-related chronic illnesses. And then we would receive those referrals from the clinic, and that's where our staff, such as Scarlett, would contact the patient and find out if they were still interested. And that's where they could go through the enrollment, where they would, get a giant bonus card number, as well as fill out that pre-survey, which would be our baseline survey, assessing their knowledge, attitudes, and behaviors towards produce, as well as some of the biomarkers that are being self-reported. And then after that, then they're able to receive $80 each month of that would be deducted at the checkout counter that would cover anything that was fresh or frozen produce. And so they would get that for approximately 6 months. And then at the 5th month, that's when they would complete the baseline survey. All right. So here we're just kind of showing you the timeline, the overview of our evaluation. So you can see we had a survey both at the baseline where we had 87 participants, and then we had a post survey where we had 68 folks complete that. We also launched a participant advisory board, so the PAB meeting. So those were individuals that informed the program. It was in order to keep the community voice centered throughout the program and to make any necessary adjustments that can improve that patient experience throughout. We did have a few lost to follow-up individuals where we did implement a survey to find out what we could do to improve the program. We also did a survey for our clinical partners. And then that last step you'll see is our evaluation report, which we'll be happy to share in the coming month or this month. All right.
Thank you, Michelle. This slide really represents, as Michelle was stating, that we collected 2 health screenings during the 6-month wellness program. That pre-survey serving as that baseline self-reporting, and then the post-survey that was completed at the exit of the program. So here we see that at the baseline, our participants reported 48% that they live with high cholesterol, 47% with diabetes, and 45% with hypertension. So these were the 3 most frequent health conditions that individuals reported. We also had an open text response in the survey that collected other health conditions that our participants may have been experiencing. So 38% suffer or live with 1 or more of these health conditions, as well as some sort of mental health conditions such as depression and anxiety. We also want to highlight and note that these biomarkers were self-reported, and because of this, it was unavailable for analysis in the post survey. So to be exact, 22% of our participants reported their exact HbA1c value, and 8% of our participants reported their exact EAG levels. Next slide, please. In this slide, we can see the self-reported behavior changes after participation for our participants. And 98% of our participants reported to have improved in eating healthier. We also see that they improved, 71% of our participants improved their blood pressure, and 61% improved their cholesterol levels. Next slide, please. The next few slides will demonstrate or show some of those questions that were asked in the survey in terms of those behavioral changes. And particularly this question saw statistically significant change when we asked them, after you eat a meal without meat, you still feel hungry. We see that it went from 32% to 12%, demonstrating a positive change in terms of adding fruits and vegetables and not feeling as hungry without having that protein present. The next slide, please. In this question, we also saw a positive statistically significant change. We asked them, you don't eat vegetables as much as you'd like because they take too much time to prepare. So we saw that their knowledge improved here from 32% to 7%. Back to you, Michelle.
Thank you. And so here you'll see the change in the BMI categories. So at the start of the program, 3% of participants were reported to be in the healthy weight category and 57% in the obesity category. And we could see at the post-intervention, the amount of folks in the healthy weight category increased and the amount of folks in the obesity category decreased by a little bit. All right. So the next one. And here we were able to get the biomarker data from one of our participating clinics. Thank you very much, La Clínica del Pueblo. And so what we can see here in the green is the pounds of participants who are part of their program at the start. And then in the navy blue, you'll see their weight at the end of the program. So this was also found to be statistically significant results. We also want to say that this is just from one clinic. And also, the participants that were part of our program that were referred to us from La Clínica, as we had mentioned, strengthening that doctor-patient relationship, that clinic also offered 2 other programs called the Diabetes Self-Management Education Program, as well as the Diabetes Prevention Program. So we also want to acknowledge that also may have impacted the weight loss that we are seeing. So we wonder if it's the combination of the access to fresh produce and our healthcare and navigators, as well as this educational component. So thank you very much. We can go to the next one. And another statistically significant result was found with the knowledge gained. For folks that were not familiar with some of the food assistance programs in the county and nationwide as well. And some of that knowledge change went from not being familiar to being familiar, most notably with the temporary cash assistance for family, the TCAF, the second bar. You could see how there was significant change there. All right, back to you, Scarlett.
Yes, this slide shows the top 20 produce most frequently purchased by our participants. This data was provided by our grocery store partner, and it shows the data from November 2022 to July 2023. The number right here besides, the green line represents the amount of times that the either fruit or vegetable was purchased. So that it doesn't really show that it was by one participant, it was just overall between the 6-7 months of data that we collected. So looking at the top 5, we see from citrus all the way to grapes were those most popular items that our participants tend to purchase in our program. All right,
Great.
Michelle, back to you.
Thank you. So we just want to acknowledge some of the limitations in the data that we're sharing with you today. One, it's self-reported, and so with that comes a social desirability bias in them disclosing that information to us, as well as that this evaluation was also conducted by program staff. And so on the pro, we were very much aware of the ins and outs of the program as we were intimately involved. However, that may also come with it our own biases as implementing the program as well as evaluating it. But other than that, we are really pleased to see the results, and we find this to be very promising, not only for this program, but for others who are implementing a food as medicine program. Go to the next one. All right, and Scarlett's going to share about our successes.
Yes, thank you, Michelle. This slide really represents those key items that we were able to lean on the program and that yield success. One of the things that our program focused on was being a low barrier, to have a low barrier enrollment. So we did not ask for a lot of criteria. As I mentioned earlier, we only had 4. So it really opened that space for different, participants to be able to actually join the program and not create that barrier. We also had bilingual community health workers with interpersonal and trauma-informed skills. This was very helpful because our participants not only came with different comorbidities, but also different other health conditions like mental health. So that was a key point for the program. We also leaned on the PAB, the Patient Advisory Board, and the experiences and expertise that are in that moment current or prior participants were able to provide to us to continue to improve the program. We also found that our program was comprehensive. As I mentioned, our participants came with different, social determinants of health. So being able to, in some way, address those by offering other social care services was also key element for our success in the program. Again, we provided bilingual material and that cultural competency for the different demographics as well as populations that our program catered to. And in the next slide, we are just sharing a couple quotes and feedbacks from our participants. Just to highlight one very briefly, we see here that they said, "I love the program and I wish I could stay longer. I was able to buy any fresh fruits and vegetables I needed. My husband right now is not working, so now we are buying less produce." So it was nice to see, their feedback, how they benefited from the program, not only them individually, but as a family and, being able to share their fresh fruits with the household. The next slide also shares a little bit more on those feedbacks. And that's it. That's all we have for you guys today. Any questions?
Well, I just wanted to share that in addition to the quantitative data, because we could only give you a snippet for today's presentation, we also had some qualitative data. And so all of that is in detail in our report. So I'm looking forward to getting your feedback. And if you'd like to talk to us about some of the more details, we're more than happy to meet with you and discuss further one-on-one. Thank you very much, Kim, for giving us this space today to share with the group.
Hi, Michelle. I moved out of the meeting. Can you just repeat what you just said?
I was just saying that we appreciate you giving us this space today to share with the group some of our results. And also, if folks would like to do a private meeting, we'd be more than happy to go into a deeper dive. In addition to the quantitative data that we shared today, we also have qualitative data, and we have many more details to share with you, particularly around implementation and lessons learned.
Thank you so much. And thanks for sharing this. This work is very exciting. Right. So before we head out today, we just wanted to continue to promote some of the activities going on throughout the month of October related to healthy eating and active living. So we have the Step It Up October Challenge, where you can actually, and we will of course provide all of the slides today, but you can set a goal to increase your walking and activity throughout the month of October. And then today is Walk Maryland Day. So we have within Walk Maryland Day, there's some event goals to promote walking as the designated Maryland state exercise, to 50 walking groups statewide to participate in the Walk Maryland Day. And they'll be tracking walking events throughout Maryland. I don't think it's too late to participate if you'd like to groups. I can make sure to add links to these in our notes, but we just want to continue to encourage everyone to be walking every day, not just October 4th. But happy to celebrate today with Maryland. And now we wanted to open up to any additional community announcements.
I have one. Hi, we were at Maryland Walk Day this morning at Watkins Park. We had a good time. There's an event, I think it's over now. There was one at Ridgely, the county's press event at the Ridgely Rosenwall School, but there's events all over the county. But anyway, we're working on our senior veterans event. So if you know any senior veterans in the county, we are actively in that registration process. It closes on October 15th. So the event is a luncheon at Martin's Crosswinds. It's a free event. So I can send you the flyer if you could push it out. Because inevitably what happens is after the registration closes out and I give my final head count to the venue, then I start getting out of the woodwork. I didn't know. So if I could ask you all to help me push it out in your communities, that would be fantastic. Has to be a Prince George's County resident to attend. So I will send you the flyer.
Thank you, Lynn. Does anyone else have any announcements they'd like to share with the group today? I wanted to give an opportunity if anyone had information about the WIC, the updated WIC information for fruits and vegetables. I saw some information come out today that there was an extension for funding for fruits and vegetables provided through WIC. I'll look into it a little bit more and make sure to follow up with that and send more details in the notes. I just wanted to give an opportunity to talk about that, but it looks like positive news for expansion of fruits and vegetable availability for people utilizing WIC. And just wanted to announce our next meeting will be December 6th at noon. We also have the quarterly meeting, the Prince George's Healthcare Action Coalition quarterly meeting, Tuesday, December 12th. And yes, we're already talking about December, which is wild to me. If anybody has any follow-up information they'd like to share with the group, please feel free to send me an email or reach out at any time. And thank you again to all of our presenters today. This was very valuable information. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your week and have a great October.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.